Hi, thank you for joining me. Today we're going to work on the zipper tumbler tutorial. Some of the items we'll be using today include a large paintbrush with wide bristles, a zipper. You can find these at Walmart. I used 7 inches, a stainless steel tumbler. This is a classic. Paint, metallic antique copper, and pearl white. PDB orangutan and PDB diamond glitter. Epoxy, part A and part B. Measuring cups, gloves, tape, and a tongue depressor. I've got my stainless steel tumbler here, and I've gone ahead and made a couple of marks on it with a highlighter. At the top, I made 2 marks 4.5 inches apart. And then in the middle of those marks, I made a line going straight down the tumbler. I'm going to use painter's tape on these markings to ensure that I get nice crisp lines when I paint the tumbler. So let me rip a piece of tape off here. I'm going to put the tape on the outer part of the line that I made. Make sure that it's pressed down really well. Now let's do the other side. Again, place the tape on the outer part of the line. All right, now that we've got it pressed down pretty well, we're going to start off by using the pearl white paint. Squeeze a little bit in the middle of our triangle. And then we're going to use our paintbrush to fill in the entire space. The strokes don't have to be neat. We will end up covering this with glitter later. We just want to make sure that our glitter has a matching color background. This will help hide any imperfections that we may have later. I think we've covered it decently now. Let me lay my brush down. And let's peel away the tape and see how it looks. Not as perfect as I'd like. going to use a little bit of acetone to shape it up. This is just acetone I got from the store, from Walmart. Pour a little bit of the cap here. And I'm just going to take a small paintbrush and just clean up this edge. Alright, that's much better. I'm going to go wash my paintbrush, and then when we'll get back, we'll paint the rest of the tumbler using the antique copper paint color. Before I get started painting the copper tumbler, I want to use electrical tape to cover the base of the tumbler. I want to keep it silver. I'm just going to use the bottom seam as a guide to follow as I wrap the tape around. I usually do this part in the beginning if you've watched my other videos, but I forgot, so we're doing it now. Alright, I'm just going to get my X-Acto knife here. And we'll cut this off real quick. Okay, now let's get the antique copper color, and we'll start getting that painted on. I'm going to squeeze a little bit on here. And then we'll use our paintbrush to spread it out like we did with the white. We want to be careful painting around the triangle so we don't mess up the edge that we created. So just go right up to it and then pull backwards, and that should help you keep your line. And again, your paint strokes don't have to be neat. We just want to make sure that the tumbler is covered in this color to hide imperfections later. Alright, I think we're just about done here. Let me just check here a little bit. Trying to make sure this line is nice and straight right here. All right, I think it looks okay. So we have the brown part, and then the white, where we'll put the white glitter. We're going to let this sit and dry. And once it's done, we'll come back and put the glitter on it and the zipper. First thing we need to do is paint a bit of epoxy on the white part. I've mixed up about 1 teaspoon here. I'll paint the epoxy on and then we'll use the PDB diamond glitter to cover it. So just stick your brush in, just has to be like the tip of it. You don't need to coat the whole brush. We'll just want to do the white part here. Be careful to try and stay in the white area only when painting this epoxy because the glitter is going to stick wherever we put the epoxy. Alright, I think that looks good. We only want a thin coat of epoxy. Too much will make the glitter shift. I'm going to put a piece of paper down under the tumbler to catch the fallen glitter because we don't want to waste any of it. You don't have to be careful sprinkling here as the glitter is only going to stick wherever we have the epoxy. I just love this color. It truly just looks like broken up diamonds to me. You just want to get nice, good coverage. I'll probably go a little overboard, but there comes a point where you can't add anymore, so we just want to try and get all that we can on the first time around. Okay, I'm going to take a dry paintbrush here and brush off the excess glitter that fell on the copper part. Since there's no epoxy there, it'll come off really easy. And again, you just want to keep those sharp straight lines that we had. Alright, I think that's looking pretty good. Just getting these lines nice and sharp. We're going to let this sit and dry for a little while, and then when we come back, I will start putting the zipper on. Alright, let's start working with the zipper. This is a 7-inch zipper I got from Walmart. We want to cut off the ends here, just below the base, and then right up here at the top. We don't want this on our tumbler. And then we're going to cut straight up right next to the zipper. So let's cut off the bottom part here. Alright, and then I'm going to get my scissors as close to the zipper part as possible and cut straight up, cutting all the fabric part away from the zipper. See if I can't get you a little bit closer here. You just want to keep getting as close as you can. All right, and as I'm up here close at the top, it's a little bit harder to cut, so I want to pull this zipper down just a little bit so I can get the outside part. Let's see here if I can cut just a little bit more. Okay, let's pull the zipper down. And then just cut off the top. And now we need to do the same thing to the other side. Just remember to try and keep your scissors as close to the zipper as possible. All right, let's pull the zipper down, and then we can cut the rest off the top. Sorry, it gets a little bit harder to hold here. All right, let's get the zipper on. I'm going to get my E6000 glue out here. And I'm going to place it here on the bottom, on the back of the zipper. And I just make sure the base lines up with that bottom line. Just make sure I have all the parts of the triangle nice and neat there. Make sure we're nice and sticky there. I'm going to use the back of this paintbrush just to press it down to make sure it's nice and stuck right there in the middle. It's okay if a little bit of the glue seeps out the sides. It dries clear and we'll be putting glitter over it, so you're not really going to notice it anyway. Alright, now we're going to want to take this zipper part here and let's bend it backwards, and you're just going to rub the E6000 glue on the back of the zipper. It's fighting me. Let's see here. There we go. Alright, now we want to lay it on that line that we just created there. Straight up to the top. We're going to want to hold that with our thumb for a little bit so we can get nice and stuck there. Be firm. Just a little bit longer. There we go. Looks like it's doing okay there. Yeah. All right, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Just flip the zipper part backwards. Get your glue. And just run it up the back of the zipper. And then we're going to do the same thing, just place it right there on the edge we've created. Just pressing it down on the sides. Make sure that's nice, good, and stuck firm there. Put that zipper down. All right, let me just press here, make sure we're good and stuck. Just hold it for a second. All right, I think it's pretty good. We'll come back and start doing the brown part of the glitter next. All right, let's get our epoxy on. Again, I have about 1 tablespoon in this cup. We're just going to drizzle it on. And I'll use my gloved finger to start with to just spread it around. We want to just be gentle and go slow here because we do not want this epoxy to get on our zipper. So just take your time, moving the epoxy around. Make sure you get in the creases, you get up on the top. And just don't rush it. It's going to end up being a thin coat, but we want to make sure that it's spread all over. Put a little bit more on here. All right, I'm going to get my paintbrush here. And I want to be able to spread my epoxy right up to the edge of the zipper. But not on the zipper because we don't want the glitter to stick to the zipper. Even though a little bit will happen, that's unavoidable. But we want to help it as much as we can here. All right, just a little bit of touch up here. I think we've done pretty well. Let's just do a last check. It's good. All right, I think the next thing we want to do is take the black tape off. By doing this, we know that glitter is not going to stick to the base of our tumbler because we want to keep that silver as I mentioned before. So we just want to find the base of the tape here. This can be a little tricky. Let's see, where did I get there? All right. Just make sure your cup stays on and pull that right off. And you have a nice silver base left. And it's dry and with no epoxy. All right, I'm going to put some paper down here to help catch the glitter because, again, we don't want to waste it. All right, let's get our brown glitter, the orangutan from PDB. I'm just going to start shaking it on the tumbler here. We just want to make sure that we're getting a nice coat. It's okay if it gets on the silver part. We're going to be able to brush that right off. Now here we just want to be careful. We don't want to spread the glitter into the white space. So just try and go gently beside the zipper because we don't want to get it inside and mess up all that white we just created. Alright, I'm just going to get a dry paintbrush and some pieces where I got the brown and the white space. I'm just going to use the dry paintbrush to brush those off. Alright, I'm going to grab some of the white glitter and just try to put a little bit in spots where I can't seem to get the brown brush stuff off just the way I want. Let me just use my tweezers and get it out of the zipper here because the diamond has some bigger flakes. Alright, let me turn my motor on here again. I'm going to use the white glitter again and just sprinkle here where I see a couple of spots. Pour some in my hand, and I can just sort of place it where I want it to be. Wait for it to come back around here. Right, stop that, and then let's just sprinkle a little bit more over here. And just pat it down. This is a chunky mix, so we want the flakes to lay down. Sometimes feel like I'm a little too much for a perfectionist for this. I want it to cover every single brown spot. think one more here. Let's see. I think that's going to do it. All right, let me get my hands cleaned off here. Turn my motor on. I'm going to get a dry paintbrush. And I want to start dusting off the bottom of the tumbler, the silver part, so that it's clean. And because we didn't get any epoxy there, the glitter is just going to brush right off it. And brush the zipper here a little bit. Don't want to mess up the touch-up we just did. Just let the tumbler do the work, turning. And you just keep brushing off from the silver. All right, I think I got the base. I just want to brush off the zipper here a little bit. You just have to be very gentle with it. I'm going to stop it here so I don't have to fight the turning. Just get as much as you can off. You don't have to be rigorous about it. We can always go back and brush it later. All right, we'll come back and we'll get our first coat of full epoxy put on the tumbler. All right, I've sprayed my tumbler with Mod Podge acrylic spray. I've mixed up 2 tablespoons of epoxy here. I'm going to start drizzling it onto the brown part. I'm not going to pour it over the zipper or the white part yet. All right, and now I'm going to use my gloved finger to spread out the epoxy on the brown part. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm actually going to take this glove off and get a new glove on my other fingers. Let's pour some epoxy on the white part now. I just want to pour it over the zipper here, because when our tumbler is done, the zipper is not going to move. Wait for it to come back around. And then we will start spreading the epoxy over the white glitter part. And just try to make sure that it's covering the entire surface area. And as it turns, we're just going to keep smoothing it out. Use the rest of our epoxy. And then just working from the bottom to the top. Keep smoothing. All right, I think it's looking good there. All right, let's get the baby wipes. And we were going to want to clean up our silver edge that we have here. So just wrap the wipe around one finger, and we're just going to clean all the epoxy that got here on the silver edge. And just let the tumbler do the work. Just keep your finger in one place, and as the tumbler turns, it'll wipe the epoxy off. All right, I'm going to do that one more time. Just want to get as close to the edge as possible. Don't want any low-hanging epoxy on the silver part of our tumbler. All right, we're going to let this dry for the next 10 to 12 hours, and when we come back, we're going to sand it and get our decal put on top of it. All right, here's our tumbler with our first coat of epoxy on it. Our zipper is all sealed down. You can't move the flipper thing here, and we just want to sand the rough parts at the top and on the backhand side, and then again on the bottom, because in the end we want a nice smooth coat. So we're going to take our sandpaper. I use 3M220 fine. And then I'm just going to sand the top here. I just go back and forth. You can see the little white there where I've sanded. And then I just turn the tumbler some. So back and forth, turn the tumbler, back and forth, turn the tumbler. We're going to do this all the way around. This will help you get a nice smooth edge at the top. Right, and then I'm just going to sand the top here, the very top here. Make sure I don't have any paint sticking up or little pieces of glitter from the chunky part sticking up, because we want it to be nice and smooth. All right, so now we want to sand the bottom, just right around the edge. Same thing as we did at the top. Sand and turn, sand and turn. All right, now we're going to want to rub our fingers up and down the side of the tumbler, and any spots that we feel that are bumpy or sharp, we're going to take our sandpaper and just rub them down. Because when we put that final coat of epoxy on, we want to have a nice smooth tumbler. Also, we want to have a smooth tumbler for the decal that we'll be putting on, because any bumps that you have will show through the vinyl when you put them on if you haven't sanded them down. And it's going to look a little dull, but once we clean the sandpaper off with the alcohol, it'll start to shine up again. And then once we put the last coat of epoxy on, you're not even going to be able to tell that we ever sanded anything. It'll be really bright and shiny. I want to sand the top part where we have that chunky glitter. We want to sand it to make sure that it's smooth as well. We don't want any chunky pieces poking up through. Especially this will be where we're going to put the name, so we want it to be a nice smooth space. Yeah, feels pretty good. Let's see if we can't get here just a little bit more. Alright, I think that's looking pretty smooth. Let me get my sandpaper thrown away here. Gonna get a paper towel. I'm gonna rip it in half. I'll take this half here and just wipe off the debris left over from the sandpaper. Alright, let me get my alcohol. It's just regular old alcohol you can get at Walmart. Fold my paper towel up. I'm gonna put some alcohol on top of it. And then we're gonna rub the tumbler down with the alcohol. See how it starts to shine back up? This will help us to make sure that we have a nice clean surface for when we start putting our decal on. Just make sure you wipe the bottom here, the silver part. And then we're going to do the same thing. Just turn the cup over and clean it again one more time. And take a little bit of acetone here and clean the very bottom silver part, just to make sure that we get rid of any debris, any Mod Podge spray that may have been left over. Because ideally, once we put our last coat of epoxy on this after the decal, that'll be it. The tumbler will be finished. So we want that silver part to be nice and shiny. Alright, we're ready for the decal here. I've already cut one out. I made this design in a few different sizes to work with. And I got my scraper here. And cut this little part off right here. It's too long. Peel off my transfer tape. And then I don't really have like a particular way, just sort of put it on here to see how it works. I just want to make sure it's not going on the zipper. So let's see. That looks good. Alright, so we're going to rub it down. Just smooth it out gently. We don't want to create any air pockets. Okay. Then we'll take our scraper, scrape it, burnish it really good to the tumbler so that it doesn't come off with the transfer tape. And then gently peel the transfer tape off the design. Yeah, that looks good. And now I'm just going to cut right here where it meets the zipper so that the vinyl's not overlapping on top of the zipper part. And just peel that right off. And we're just going to continue to do this process all the way around the tumbler. And then go in any design that you'd like. This isn't one that's specific. I'm just putting different sizes in different places and seeing how it works. We are now ready for the final coat of the epoxy since we have all our decorative vinyl on. I've already pre-mixed about 2 tablespoons of epoxy. Let me get my glove on and get it seated here. As the tumbler turns, we are going to drizzle about half of the epoxy over the tumbler. Doesn't have to be any real pattern here. I just sort of go back and forth as it turns. I just want to get enough on here to make a thin layer to get me started so I can smooth it out. I want to just go all the way around. Then we're going to use our finger to spread the epoxy that we just drizzled on, starting at the bottom of the design all the way to the top. We want to do this all the way around. Make sure that you're going over the zipper as well. We also want to spread the epoxy in a back and forth motion to prevent getting fish eyes in our final product. Fish eyes are caused by air getting trapped between the epoxy and the tumbler that then burst during drying. This leaves holes in our epoxy. By moving our finger in many different small directions all over the tumbler, we make sure that the epoxy makes full contact with the entire surface, and this helps to eliminate the chances of fish eyes from happening. All right, we're going to smooth out the epoxy one more time. Again, moving from the bottom to the top. This time though, I want my finger to just go over the edge of the design, right onto that silver part as we drag our finger back and forth. We'll come back to this in a minute. All right, now we want to seal the rim of the tumbler. I'm going to pull my glove tight, and we're going to make short, sweeping motions over the lip of the tumbler. I do this to make sure that there is a tight seal on the lip when the epoxy is all dry. Now let's take the epoxy we had left over and drizzle the rest of it on the tumbler. This time, however, we want to pour a little around the bottom of the rim of the tumbler, just where we let our finger drag over. We don't want to go all the way to the bottom, but just instead right below the brown part and the base of the zipper. We should have no epoxy left over after this. Let's smooth out the epoxy one last time, dragging our finger from the bottom to the top, but not going on to the silver part. We don't want to move any of the epoxy that's on the silver part. All right, I'm going to take my glove off here. And now we need a baby wipe to clean up the edge of the base. I wrap the wipe around one finger and put it just over the very base of the tumbler. I want to let the turner do the work here so that I can get a very clean edge. All right, I'm going to move my finger to a cleaner part of the baby wipe. Ultimately, we want there to be a small lip of epoxy on the base of the tumbler to create a tight seal all the way around. Now that we're done, we're going to let this turn for the next 12 hours to dry. Well, here it is, our finished open zipper tumbler. I think it turned out quite beautiful. Thank you for joining me. Remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to watch more of our tutorials. I hope you'll join us on Facebook and show us your beautiful creations.